In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by Akkerman, their number 18. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also down in the description is a link to the red ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you could find that there. I'm an ink guy. Let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get some shading going on in the stub and a little bit in the extra fine and the medium. Very rare quality that occurs in the reds. I don't see that a lot with reds. Now the extra fine and medium are the same tone and both just a little bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 8 seconds to dry while the medium took 12. Scrubby for both do show color variation and we definitely get it. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor 1911 with a music nib was inked up, used for day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading on this paper, more from the paper than the ink. The extra fine and the medium are about the same tone, both lighter than the stub. The extra fine took 11 seconds to dry while the medium took 19. Now the scrubby for both do show that some color variation should be able to come through. There's a little bit there, far left to far right, though we don't get any in the writing. And the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. Now the one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this magenta tone at the bottom that's forming a line and pushing its way up. And then we get a little spots of orange coming through and a nice red there. Now this looks really similar to the last writing sample from, or the last Akkerman ink, which, let me look that up real quick, was Akkerman's number 19. When we compare them, though, what we actually find is these two are a little different. So I'm going to go to a different shot here, where we see the one we're doing now is just a little bit darker than the last one, which was number 19. And their chromatographies do look very similar, but absolutely different. And I just knew that that was going to come up as a question. Now the one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes before it was put into water. And the line at the bottom is much more permanent, much more there, showing that it may be a bit resistant. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading in the stub, little darker spots that do occur through the extra fine and through the medium. Now the extra fine and the medium show it about the same tone, both lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 7 seconds to dry while the medium took 11. The scrubby for both do show some color variation and we do get it in the writing in the peppering of dark spots. Smear test says you could likely recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. This smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself fairly well, meaning you can read what's there. It does thicken up a little bit and get just a little feathery, but everything's readable. Now, water's lifting a lot of the red, still leaving a very light magenta tone completely in place. Pen flush does the exact same thing that water did, nothing more. It did only take water to get this out of my pen. And the 1/3 bleach solution, you're not going to need it, but it does completely remove it. The next writing sample is done on monocoque paper. No bleeding, minor ghosting with the medium. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading in the stub, a couple of dark spots that occur in the extra fine, none in the medium. Now the medium is just a little bit lighter than the stub, while the extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 7 seconds to dry and the medium took 10. Scrubby for both, don't show a lot for color variation, and we really only get peppering of darker spots, and they show better on the extra fine. Smear test says you probably could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Akkerman's number 18 has a viscosity of 1.38, meaning this is a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and the bell curves made, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, let's take a look at the next writing sample done on moleskin paper. Even though this with the medium bleeds very heavy into the page, none of it touched the page underneath, which is a really good sign. Now, with the extra fine, there is so much bleed heavy into, but not through the paper. I don't think you could use the back of the page, but I do think its performance is fairly strong here for being on such cheap paper, or cheaply made paper. Now the medium has a ridiculous amount of feathering. It's really very distracting to see. I wouldn't want to deal with that. The extra fine has much tinier feathers, much more manageable for dealing with in a pocket notebook. In both cases, we have no spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine only took 2 seconds to dry, which is great. Its scrubby showed no color variation. It wasn't there, and the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Akkerman's number 18 has an average dry time of 13 seconds, putting it right on the edge, but still normal. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound premium copy paper. Now this paper usually performs fairly well when it comes to things like bleeding and ghosting, but there is a lot of spots that did come through not touching the page underneath, but to where you can very easily see them, and there is a little bit of ghosting that's occurring there. Now we do have some feathering in the medium, but no feathering in the extra fine. We have no spread in the medium, but we have a little bit of spread in the extra fine. No halo, no sheen, no shading in either. Now the extra fine is a little bit lighter than the medium. The extra fine only took 1 second to dry. Its scrubby showed no color variation, and neither did the writing. And the smear test, you're not smearing it, so don't worry about it. Instead of finding inks that look like Akkerman's number 18, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a blue ink by KWZ, their Iron Gall Blue number 6. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description is links to those playlists. So what do I think of Akkerman's number 18? It's a nice darker red that gives shading in some of the writing and gives real character that's rare in red inks. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Well, first off, don't go with a wet music nib like I did. That was just a little bit of a mistake. I would actually go with a wet fine to get a darker, richer red, and while the shading will be sacrificed there, I've found that personally I don't need shading in my red inks. If you really want the shading though, then go with a medium flow fine or medium nib and it's gonna look great. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're gonna take a look at Noodler's Bad Belted Kingfish.